part in that appropriate category based upon those things that may not go there. So that when I step back and I can review, I can see the whole picture of all the different meanings and see the gestalt and their relationships to each other. So that then when I decide to allocate resources, and that could be make a phone call, draft a document, have a beer, go to sleep, whatever it is I decide to do, that's done from a place of trust because I can relate to the whole aspect, the whole gestalt, the whole picture. So quite simply, capture what has your attention. That means external memory. I love Evernote for that reason. I mean, all kinds of things I stick in there. And that's why the in basket is such a powerful place. You need the freedom to have ideas, then later on figure out what they mean and what to do with them, because those are two different exercises. When I take notes, I like to take a lot of notes, but I'm not sure which of those notes are going to be relevant when I wake up the next morning. So I need to have a place and the freedom to just dump whatever's on my mind that's potentially relevant. I don't know yet. I'll bet most of you in these 2 days have run across and had conversations and inputs in this conference, and you don't know yet what exactly you're going to commit to about it, but you know it's potentially relevant. Great. So as long as you toss all that stuff into some sort of a bucket that you will see and review sooner than later, you're cool. Your mind goes, I don't have to keep hanging on to that. That's why when you're brainstorming, it always helps to write it down, put it on the wall, put it somewhere else, so that the mind goes, hey, that was potentially cool. There's a placeholder for it. I can move on. If you don't do that, the mind's going, hey, that was a good idea, that was a good idea. Don't lose it, don't lose it, don't lose it. And the monkeys start to run inside your head. The problem is that's so uncomfortable, most people then numb out to it, don't realize how much it just undermines your energy. Now, if you just leave it in, if you don't clarify what this stuff is, then psychologically all this stuff is going to back up on you like bad plumbing again. And then you become a compulsive list maker. That's not going to be the most effective way for your mind to be able to let go. So what you need to do is you need to determine what these things really are. When you're making an Evernote note, sooner than later, you better decide, is that something just for reference? Is that something that's going to remind me of something I need to do? Is that some outcome I'm committed to? Is that some action I need to take about this? Or is that something I'm not sure I want to move on yet, but might? Is this just in time or just in case? My restaurant list for San Francisco. That's only when I'm in San Francisco, boom, then I see it. Something that has to do, so making those distinctions becomes really clear. If you don't make those distinctions, your brain sort of looks at it and turns to toast because it knows there's still thinking involved. You need to finish your thinking sooner than later. What does that mean to me? Once I decide what it means, then very close on to making that decision is then where you need to park it so that your mind doesn't have to then keep rethinking, what does this mean, where is that? So restaurant list, go where restaurant list goes. I have a stack in Evernote of called locales. So I have every single restaurant I've ever eaten on this planet that I ever might want to go back to, nested inside of that stack. Different notebooks for each locale. New York City, San Francisco, Romania, Australia, whatever. Very easy, very easy. It's such a great tool. One of the reasons Evernote can be totally overwhelming to people is because it is so simple, and then you have to decide what things mean and how to structure that so that it works for you. You need to park it based upon that situation. You don't want to have to keep rethinking, why is this here, what does this mean to me? This thing goes over here, that's what all of those are. So then I don't have to think so much as I'm making intuitive choices about what do I do out of that, which your mind does very well. Much better than artificial intelligence. And then you need to step back and take a look. If you don't look at the whole game, some part of you is going, yeah, but I wonder what's over there. I haven't looked over there for a while. Okay, step back. Make sure you're seeing things from a higher horizon. That's why we teach the weekly review. Once a week, you better step back from the day-to-day, crank it out, and just take a look. What's happened in the last 7 days? What is that new information that we need to integrate here? See, the problem with knowledge work and the problem with planning is that knowledge work can be impacted every second. It could shift and change. Every one of us in this room has been accumulating emails today and texts that could potentially change what the heck you think your priorities are going to be at 7:30 tonight. And a lot of you'd be bored silly if you didn't have that kind of input going on, but the truth is, ooh, it's constantly shifting, constantly coming in. So we need this on a regular basis to make sure that our inventory of what all those meanings are is we've got that under control so that we can step back and see the whole game and then trust how to deal with change and surprise as it's coming at us. And ultimately, it's all about how do I then engage. And there's no algorithm that's going to tell you, which phone call you need to make first or what you need to do at your computer, except your heart, your gut, your liver, or whatever the heck you trust that lets you know, hey, I think that's the one. I have a simple criteria, by the way, in terms of how I engage, called what's most on my mind right now. Because years ago, I started to get addicted to having absolutely nothing on my mind. By the way, that's a very cool place to be. Once you get used to that. So I start to notice, when do I have tension or attention on something? It's just an indicator in my environment that something has happened, something has changed, something I need to consider. And then how do I get that off my mind again? How do I get that under cruise control? Did any of you have anything on your mind? No. Aside from listening to me. 99% of the time, things will be on your mind because there's some decision about it you haven't made, or you haven't parked the results in a trusted place that you trust you or the right people will see at the right time. So you don't have to go very far to see how to implement this methodology that I'm sharing with you. You also start to pay attention to what has your attention. And mostly start to get attracted to having none of that on your mind. There's an inverse relationship between on your mind and getting done. So you can pretty much bet if something's nagging at you or niggling inside your head, it's hung up and you're probably the bottleneck. Now, if you're interested, if you really want to do a deep dive on what I've just been sharing with you, and I really haven't done it justice because these guys are much smarter than I am. What I'm sharing with you actually came from a scientific research paper, peer-reviewed for the Journal of Long Range Planning by two guys in Belgium, the Free University of Belgium. Francis Huygens and Clement Vidal. And these guys ran across GTD and actually wrote a 21-page deep dive paper about why the GTD process, getting things done, is scientifically validated now, based upon a lot of what I've been sharing with you. The evolutionary process of the brain, cognitive awareness about how the brain works and doesn't work, what it doesn't do very well. Fabulous. So if you want to go, you can surf the web on that. You'll find it. It's a PDF file you can just pull down. So once more, if you remember nothing else, if you want my primary admonition from the last 68 years of my existence, I have one thing to share with you folks. Your head is for having ideas, not for holding them. And now we've got fabulous tools, as you can see, to make sure that we have the capability, that we've lowered the barrier to entry to make sure that there's no excuses anymore for that process. So I love the before and after slides. You know, there's before distributed cognition, and there's after. By the way, our folks back at the staff said, I don't know if you know, but we have a PDF file on GTD and Evernote. Suggested usage. If you're into both, you want to see our suggestions that we've come across. Kelly Forrester on our staff is fabulous at writing setup guides for Outlook and Lotus Notes and Apple stuff, whatever. So we've got both a Mac and a version of that half off. They're usually $10 you can download it, so it's $5. Just need to use that link, if you will, with /Evernote on our website, and you can work that if you want. Anyway, I hope this was useful to you. I found it fascinating to see where the world is going, and I guarantee you, Evernote and GTD are not done. It's going to take over the world. Thanks a lot.